Years, we have been told that we don't have the modern manufacturing ability, the kind of steel we need, or the resolve to have what is in this pen, an affordable steel, flexible fountain pen nib. Now, here's just one problem with that whole argument, and that is this. This nib, the Majohn steel flexible nib, just blew every one of those arguments out of the water, because clearly somebody does have the steel, somebody does have the manufacturing prowess, and somebody does have the resolve. And that somebody apparently is Majohn, which probably ticks a few of you off, I think. But the truth is, they have actually done it. A very affordable nib unit that you can either get in a Majohn pen, or you can buy just as the nib unit like I did and swap it into an older Majohn pen or a lot of other pens that can take either a compatible nib unit or just pull the nib out of this nib unit and swap it into your number 6 nibbed pen. And I know what you're thinking, but can it really be that good? Still, it's not going to be as good as a vintage pen, although I will tell you that a lot of the vintage pens that I got, because people just kept saying, this one can't be beat, this one can't be beat, this one can't be beat, they've all been beat. I don't know what to tell you. It's just the way that it is. This is an affordable, new, steel, flexible nib. So how about we spin the camera and I will show you how this nib writes. I will tell you about how easily I was able to swap it into this pen and that this is a good candidate for this nib, and we'll do a writing test, and I'm going to compare it to another modern flexible steel nib in an affordable pen that comes from India. All right, so first, let's look at the pen. This is a Majohn P136. It's obviously meant to look a lot like a Mont Blanc, and basically I would say that it is just a classic black silver trimmed piston filling pen. The form factor here is great. This is a decently made pen at a great price, and I really enjoy using this pen. This, to me, is a great candidate for the nib unit from Majohn that has the flexible nib. And this is the nib. You can see there it has the Majohn Moon Man mountain range logo at the top, and then I don't know, kind of a shoelaces design. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be here, just below the crescent of a breather hole, and it all works really well. You can see here, nice broad-shouldered steel nib. Does have a plastic feed. I have heard of some people putting an ebonite feed to this. I'm not sure where they source that. If you know, please put that in the comments below. It may be one of those things that is market dependent. I haven't seen those available in the places that I find these parts. The nib itself will fit in lots of pens that can take a Chinese number 6 nib, so you can put this in a Jinhao 100, several other Majohns. I've heard of people putting them in some Asvines. I'll include a list of known compatible Majohn pens in the description below. Again, this is the P136, and it just went right in without issue and has worked great. Now, what makes this unique is, one, it really is a flex nib. Let me just show you here before we get into our full writing sample. This is with no pressure whatsoever. You can see that it writes fine. I mean, that's really sloppy, but I'm behind the camera and way far away from the paper and not really able to do a good job right here. But you can see anyway that it will write fairly normally. When you want to come down with some pressure, you get some nice flexibility there. And you can take that pretty far, as I'll show you in the actual writing test. But that's what a flex nib does. It's different from, say, a stub nib, because a stub does give you line variation. And by the way, this is also Majohn, and it is also a P136. But this gives you a fixed line variation. This is 1.1 millimeters wide on the downstroke and is about fine-ish on the side stroke. And you get your variation just by having a wide line come down and a narrow line go across. But there's zero flexibility. This is a stiff nib and wasn't made to be flexible. So you have inflexible line variation. If you don't want to learn the trick of using a flex nib, this is actually a great alternative to that. But it does impose some limits on you that a flex nib doesn't impose, because the flex nib will give you different line variations based on the amount of pressure that you're putting down. So let's just grab some paper and take a look at that and see how this one actually does. So this is, again, a Majohn. And let me just say, I'm not a calligrapher. I won't be doing that today. Okay, that is not in my skill set. We actually had to learn some calligraphy when I was in school. You're thinking, wow, how old is this man? It wasn't that old. It was just the 80s. But I did not retain that skill in the long term. So what I want to do is first just kind of show you what it's like. If you're writing, I'm writing with my normal handwriting and just applying a little extra pressure here and there to get a little bit of flex out of it while writing normally. That's what I actually like to do most with a flex nib. And this is, now that's not my normal F. Y'all know that if you've watched this channel very much. But you see, just giving a little pressure on the downstroke starts to bring out some flex, and that's the whole idea. So let me just show you, no pressure to a good deal of pressure, what you can do with this pen. So this is no pressure. That's almost just dragging it across the paper. This is very light pressure, moderate pressure, heavier pressure, still a bit more, a bit more, a bit more, and I railroaded there. Let's try that one more time. Yeah, I got it. So you can get a pretty wide line without much trouble with this pen. And I will say, I've railroaded once or twice before as I've used this over the last couple of weeks, just, writing slowly, but it keeps up a lot more than it lets loose. It does, I will tell you this, it puts out a lot of ink when you flex this nib. And so the feed, at least on my particular unit here, really does keep up. I've heard a little bit of mixed feedback on that, but mine has been keeping up quite well. The ink today is, and it looks quite different from what it looks like in other pens I've used it in, but this is Noodler's ink. Again, this is not calligraphy. This is just writing. I am giving it a little extra pressure. This is Liberty's Elysium blue. And that's a Goulet exclusive blue, really nice one. And it's darker in this pen because I'm telling you, the flow is really good. I think that was a good choice to combine with this nib, okay? So when you give it pressure on downstroke, you get great line variation, really good. I railroaded there. That's because I went beyond, I think, what it wants to do, because it will keep up as long as you don't get too far out of bounds. I had a wider sheet of paper, and I just did this all the way across, trying to make it not keep up, and it kept up every time. So this is me just pushing it out of its bounds. I know I have gotten it to go pretty far, really. See? So take your time and you get really good flow and a really good line variation out of this. And let me tell you what I like about this pen after using it for a couple of weeks. And that is that if I want to do just normal writing, it really, it does that. And it'll keep up. If I want to, let's say, do our normal speed test, I lifted there, it's going to keep up there. I turned here, that might not have been keeping up, but generally I have no issues. This nib keeps up, and what I've really liked about it is that ability to be a usable pen. If you want to carry that so that you can do flexible nib writing on demand, but you still want a pen that will write normally the rest of the time, it is fantastic. Smooth across the page, and that's not always the case with a flexible nib. Because of that flexibility, it can cause it to snag a little bit if you go to the side while it's down, making a little mistake there. And in normal writing, you might do that because you're not focusing as much. And so some pens with that softness, like a soft fine or a soft medium, can catch you that way, especially on certain papers. But I have not had this pen do that anywhere. I should say this nib. It's really a function of the nib. This nib has not done that to me or me to it at all. And I actually really like that. A normal everyday writing pen that has flexible capability is really what you're looking for in a lot of those vintage pens. That's why people go after those, because they were pens people wrote with every day. It might have been their only pen and it had flexibility. This brings that ability in a modern, affordable steel nib. So if you've been told that can't be found and can't be done, not anymore. That is not true. Now, I mentioned there are some other pens that I want you to think about in comparison to this, and I want to examine this nib in comparison to them. So I mentioned that a lot of people, for line variation, will just go for a stub nib. So this is, again, a 1.1 millimeter stub nib. This one is also by Majohn, and it's really good. It's a nice smooth stub. I like it, and it also is quite affordable. And what it does is just give you that 1.1 millimeter line. It doesn't change. There's no variation except down strokes versus side strokes, and that gives you, if you do these, some variation, but it's a different style and a different method of getting there, and that brings with it really a lot of limitations. What you see is what you get. You can work that to your advantage, but it can only do so much. Now, another pen that is not, I don't call it a flex nib. I would say this is a gold nib with flex. Flex nib versus with flex, I think they're two different things. And this is a Pilot that I like a lot. And that CH, stands for Custom Heritage. And this is the 912. And the nib is called an FA nib. And you can see some definite variation there in your normal writing. And what you can do here is, this is no pressure whatsoever. This is very light pressure, medium, a bit more aggressive, and you can push it there. That's actually starts to get into the region of what that Majohn can do, and you can get some nice line variation. It's a really well-made pen. This nib is only available in certain Pilot pens, and you can't get it in the aftermarket at all, so you're very, very limited in what you can get it in, and it's pretty pricey. It's a gold nib, and it is a very well-made pen with rhodium trim, and I think form factor-wise, just nearly perfection on how this pen is in hand. If you think that's boring, that it's just black and silver, I don't. Okay, this is just an excellent, excellent pen. But it doesn't keep up quite as well. You'll get to the railroading stage faster, and that is a common criticism of this pen that you'll see. Again, there is an ebonite feed available in the aftermarket that you can swap into it, and I haven't done it, but people say it really helps with that issue. But overall, just a beautiful pen, but it does have its limits, because I would say, again, it is a gold nib with some flex, not a flex nib, if that makes sense. It's a subtle difference, but it's a difference nonetheless. For other modern pens, and this one is much more affordable in that Majohn range, I think these probably would compete pretty much head to head, is the FPR. This is a Himalaya V2 with, they call that the Ultra Flex, right? It's their flexible steel nib. You'll notice that it is quite fine in its standard line width, but you can easily get some nice flex out of it. This is my normal writing. I'm not really trying to get a lot of variation out of it here, because I'm having to concentrate on the spelling of Himalaya. But here's what you get. You get no pressure, light pressure, medium pressure, a bit more, and a bit more, and a bit more. So now you're starting to get into the range of the Majohn. And then, let's see here, you get a bunch there. You can really start to bring some line variation out of there. Make a little feathering here. This pen writes with an ebonite feed, quite wet with the ink I've got in it. And this ink is the FPR Neptune Blue. And it writes wet and dark, and you can maybe even get some feathering on some papers because it's really pushing that ink. But let me just show you again so we can compare it here in a second to that Majohn. Okay, really, really nice. Here's the difference, and I'll show you on a larger loop-de-loop there here in a second, and that is that this does not write quite as smoothly. There's just a little bit of tangible feedback at certain stages of that flexing, and writing with this as a daily pen is definitely possible, and I carry this pen from time to time because I really enjoy it and it's a beautiful material. But now when I tried writing with the Majohn, there was a definite difference in the smoothness of writing with this pen. Now let's put these side by side. I'm going to try and get those about the same amount of pressure. And what I notice is a little bit cleaner line. That's probably the ink, but it's just smoother. Oh yeah. I don't know if you can hear it there or not. I'm not putting this through my normal audio filters, so you'll probably be able to hear that a little bit better, the difference, but it just works, and it works really well. And let me just turn this so I can give you another sample. I want to do a larger sample between these two because these are the most comparable of these pens for what you can do. So let's do a large. Oh, that did railroad, but it kept up the rest of the time. But you can see there, did you hear that? I tried to stop talking long enough, but it was hard. If you heard it, I think you'll hear the difference now. Here, I'll shut up. I don't know whether you heard that or not. My paper was moving a little bit. Anyway, I do think that these are quite comparable. I think if you can go to a pen show and try that Himalaya and see what you think, it might be a pen that you really like. It's certainly easy to get here in the U.S., but so is the Majohn. And here's the thing. I think that this particular nib, certainly the one that I got, just is that little bit smoother, that little bit more refined, and it's my current favorite inexpensive modern steel nib that is a flex, and it's a more pleasant daily driver just in the normal writing. But hey, some of you have already gotten this thing in the mail. You've already tried it out. You've compared it, maybe compared it to some of your vintage flex pens, which you may or may not like even better. What I want you to do is to tell me which of these nibs that you've tried do you like better. I, so far, am very impressed with this and am really enjoying it. I've taken it on a couple of trips where I was using it as my daily driver, and really excellent. If you like it, or if you're thinking about putting it in a pen, what pen are you going to put it in? Share that in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for liking, sharing, and subscribing. It really does help the channel. And thank you so much for those of you who support the channel with your memberships. I'm very, very grateful for that as well. I hope that you all have an absolutely wonderful week. God bless you, and I'll see you in the comments and in the next video.